So today we're going to talk about, or continue to talk about intuition. So strengthening your intuition, part two. So a couple of days ago, I talked about intuition as a way to hear messages from your higher self and your guides. But there's a little bit more to this story, right? We're going to kind of talk about it in a little bit more detail. So as you probably know, we live in a sort of a virtual reality, and our physical eyes can only see a small portion of what is really around us. So we are surrounded by a field of energy, and we ourselves are energetic beings. And that energy carries information, all that field around us. So before events materialize in your life, before they become real and tangible to you, they first land in your energetic field, right? So this is how a lot of intuitives and readers can work. They actually can sort of sense or perceive what is in your field, what is in your energetic field. So if this is sorry about the barking. So if this is an increase of wealth and power, this will be present in your energy field. If you have a new relationship, that's going to be, an expansion of a certain part of your energy field in your heart chakra, right? We can get into that another day. So another aspect of intuition is accessing information in that field, right? So how do you do that, right? It's simple to do, but this is an ability we all have, but is dormant in many of us. So you ask a specific question. So I'm going to kind of lead you through what this process would look like, accessing that information. So you ask a specific question and you allow the answer to come to you. So there are two keywords in the above statement, right? The one word is specific in terms of the specific question, and allow, right? To be in a state of allowing or receiving. So your question must be specific. So let's start with that. If you ask, so this is asking the field around you, asking your own subconscious, a general or an open-ended question, your answer will be unclear or confusing. So, for example, will I be rich? Right? This is very ambiguous. Like, will you be rich before you die? Will you be rich? And what does rich look like to you? Does this mean like you'll pay off your student loans rich? So very ambiguous. So a better question would be, will my company reach six figures next year or within the next 12 months or within the next 24 months? Do you see how that goes? You're giving a specific timeline and a specific number what you want to reach. So that gives your subconscious or your higher self or whoever your ability to grasp the situation, the information around you, something a little bit more concrete to answer you, right? So now for the allowing part, for the receiving part. So this can be very tricky for a lot of people because a lot of us where our minds are busy, we're kind of in that detached from our body state. We're up in our heads, we're in our brain. We have a repetitive recording running, like, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. We have a to-do list constantly running through our brains. So you've got to kind of put that away for a minute and kind of get in and feel your body, right? Take a few deep breaths, take a look around you, notice what's surrounding you, notice what you're feeling, what you're smelling, what you're hearing, kind of access your senses, reconnect. That's kind of a key, and it should be part of your daily practice if you are serious about really picking up some accurate intuitive information. Okay, so get back in your body, take note of what your senses are registering. And as well as accessing your five senses, you want to kind of go a little further than that. What are your thoughts and memories? The way that what thoughts, what memories, what images are popping into your mind, you're just receiving them. So I'm going to give you an example of what sort of this looks like, kind of how this information can be received. So years ago, I did this exercise asking for what my next year would bring, asking for significant events of the next year. And went through the whole thing. I did my deep breaths, started kind of tuning into my body and what my senses are picking up. And my eyes sort of landed in a magazine. And mind you, I was on a plane, right? I was on an airplane, so I had very limited surroundings around me, right? Like I didn't have like that I was in my home or outside where I had sort of all these things to inspire my vision and my senses, right? I was like in an airplane seat. There's other people kind of next to me, but my eyes landed on a magazine. So you guys know, in that little pocket in front of you or in the seat in front of you, usually they put little magazines. And I looked at this magazine, and it was a cover with, a pretty house and a big porch. So I'm like, oh, this is nice, And in my mind, I started imagining a family gathering. I started feeling this sense of love. I started feeling this sense of like good food, beautiful weather. But suddenly I also started getting the sense of heaviness and sadness, right? So I'm like, huh. And I kind of disregarded it. I stopped the exercise, documented it, and then I thought, okay, I'm just practicing, whatever. It was only several years later that I realized that I was picking up on the events, on the gatherings, on the family gatherings that surrounded my sister's passing, right? And everything turned out to be true. The love, the people holding hands, the big buffet, the beautiful home. But of course, the sadness and the heaviness was also very real and very present. So let's tie it back to you and how you're going to go forward from here to get into that space of allowing, asking your questions, and receiving important intuitive information about the future. So it's important to note that we have to remember the nature of the reality we live in, right? So I'm kind of going to try to explain how this phenomenon happens and why is it so accurate and why we can access this information, right? So the reality we live in is actually kind of a interactive, highly complex virtual program. So everything you perceive, that you sense, remember, feel, intuit, everything has a meaning, like everything. And we all know that two people can see the same thing, right? But take away completely different impressions and memories. Reality is highly subjective and dependent on the viewer. So your questions, the ones you ask of the field, the higher mind, are going to be answered correctly, and your senses will pick up the relevant information regardless of where you are and your surroundings, or the impressions and memories accessed by people that are surrounding you. You're going to get your information. You don't need to worry or overthink it, right? So there is a part of this process that's a little challenging and takes a little practice. So when you access that relaxed state of allowing, it is easy to pick up the information, right? And the allowing does take a little practice, especially those of us that tend to be very cerebral, right? And second guess ourselves, right? But the true challenging part is not really the allowing, it's interpreting the information so it makes sense to your question, adapting the bits and pieces received and crafting the answer, right? Understanding what they're trying to tell you. So this is why before any reading that I do, before I attempt to access the field to get my answers, I will ask my guides and angels to help me with downloading the correct information, of course, right? Interpreting it correctly, and of course, communicating it with kindness to the client in a way that's absorbable, that's usable, that's practical to them. The second part, what I highlighted, interpretation does take some practice. And you will need to build your confidence by documenting your questions, right? So making this maybe a regular thing where you go into your space of clearing your field, breathing, getting into your body, getting used to picking up what your senses are communicating to you, accessing those memories, that are popping up kind of naturally, right, in your field, and then allowing, right, and then documenting, what you asked, and then documenting the impressions, the answers you got, and then verifying the answers and the interpretations, right? And eventually, you're going to start to get better and better understanding how the universe is communicating with you, how they're typically how you're receiving the information, right? So a simple way to start to do this, and right, and then now we're going to mix in a little bit of divination with accessing intuition, right? But that's okay, it's kind of connected. So a simple way to start to do this is by looking at the clouds, right? I know this is kind of funny, but the clouds are sort of random. They have all sorts of formations. You have somebody who sees a shoe in the clouds, another person sees sheep. So again, very subjective, open to your interpretation. So pose a question, right? I mean, you might be driving, you're stepping outside, and look at the clouds, look at the sky. What does it tell you? What do you see in the clouds? What formations do you see in the clouds, right? This could be a really interesting way that you could, you know, get your own answers from the universe, right? Remember, this is an interactive program. Answers are everywhere. I, this is just one way of doing it. And in future lives, I will go into different forms of divination and how this process can be adapted, to a divination modality, right? Like, and this is really what it is. It's like somebody going in and using their own medium, such as a modality, to give you an answer. Okay, so I'm going to close. We kind of went long today. So I'm going to end this live. Thank you again for all your feedback and your comments. And please keep them coming. They really help me to share the information that you want to hear.